The reason you need factoring is so that you can find solutions. Factoring leads directly to solutions, or sometimes we call those solutions x-intercepts. All of those words are all synonymous, so I just want you to make sure you know the following words. If they say find solutions, that's the same thing as finding x-intercepts, which is the same thing as finding roots. So in English class, what do you call words that all have the same meaning? Do you remember? It's not a homonym. It's a synonym. Okay? Homonym are words that sound the same but have different meanings, like night and night, or two, or there, and there. Those are homonyms because they have the same phonetic sound, but they are spelled differently and have different meanings. These words are all different words, but they all have the same meaning, and so these are synonyms to each other. Okay, so they have the same meaning. You use factoring to find them. So factoring is a strategy that leads to finding solutions. And so that's why we practiced factoring, so that we could use it today to find solutions. So here's your first example. So the directions might say, find solutions for the following problem. 2x squared minus 3x equals 2. Okay, find solutions for. Now, the first step or goal is always going to be to get one side equal to 0. You can't do any factoring until you have things in order where one side is equal to 0. So right now this problem is equal to 2. I don't want it equal to 2, I want it equal to 0. So what should I do to both sides? Okay, I'm going to subtract the 2. That's going to give me 2x squared minus 3x minus 2 equals 0. So now it's equal to 0. Now I'm going to use factoring. For factoring, you check, do I have a common factor? And if I don't have a common factor, then you go to star. So looking at 2x squared minus 3x minus 2, there is nothing in common between those, and so I'm going to go to star because it's a trinomial. The top of the star would be what number? Okay, -4, and the bottom would be -3, and so then you need to think of the values that work between -4 and -3. So that's going to be a combination of 4 and 1, where one of them, okay, so it's 4 and 1, but which one needs to be negative? The 4. So I'm going to take those numbers and make this a problem that has 4 terms. So 2x squared minus 4x plus 1x minus 2. So you actually make the problem a little bit longer by going from 3 terms to 4 terms, but you do that so that you can split it, because you can't split an odd-numbered problem, a problem with odd-numbered terms, in half. You need an even number of terms, so that's why we go from 3 terms to 4 terms. And then we just do the same thing we did yesterday. We look for what they have in common in the front. Okay? All right, so I'm seeing, okay, they have a 2 and the variable x in common, which leaves me with 1x minus 2 as my parentheses. On the other side, they don't have anything in common, but they do have the number 1. So I take a positive 1 out. That leaves me with x minus 2, still equal to 0. So now on both sides of the yellow line, I have the same parentheses. I have the common parenthesis, x minus 2. So I'm going to cross that out because it was common on both, and I look for what's left. And what's left go together in the second parentheses, 2x plus 1, still equal to 0. So that was factoring. That's what you did yesterday. The next step to find the solutions. Okay, to go from factoring to solutions is to take those two factors and set them each equal to 0 separately. And so x minus 2 as the lead factor would get set equal to 0. So would 2x plus 1 equal 0. The reason is if you multiply something and equal 0, one of them or both of them are equal to 0 by themselves. So then you solve each of them. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. X is equal to 2. On the other side, I'll subtract 1 from both sides. That will give me 2x equals negative 1. Then I'll divide both sides by 2. And so x equals negative 1/2. Those are called my solutions. So the directions were find the solutions for that problem. Well, here they are. These are the two solutions. How do you check your work? Plug them back in where? To the very original problem. Okay, you would take each of them, you go back to the beginning, plug it in for x, and see if it works out to be equal to 2, both of them. Okay, that's finding solutions. So it's factoring, and then setting the factors equal to 0. It's all about being equal to 0. The problem should be equal to 0, the factor should be equal to 0. That will lead you with your answers. Any questions on that one? Let's try it again, or try something similar. All right, another question might say, find the x-intercepts. And then they'll give you a problem. It's the same thing because an x-intercept is the same thing as a solution. And so you might have it like this. X times 3x plus 11 equals 4. So it might look like that. Your job is to make it be equal to 0. The first step is to distribute so that you can get a little closer to being equal to 0. What am I going to distribute in this question? The x. So I'm going to take the x and distribute. That gives me 3x squared plus 11x equals 4. But I still need that equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. That will give me 3x squared plus 11x minus 4 being equal to 0. So the goal is always to get that equal to 0. Once you've got it equal to 0, then you go to factor. And you say, do I have a greatest common factor? And if not, then you go to star factor. But always maybe check if there's a greatest common factor first. Okay, I don't. So my star factor has negative 12 on the top and 11 on the bottom. So I got to think of numbers that would work for that. It's going to be 12 and 1. Which one should be negative this time? Because if I leave it 12 and 1, that would be equal to 13. So I need something to be negative, either the 12 or the 1. The 1 should be negative this time. So in my problem, the 12 is the positive value for x, and the 1 is the negative. But it's still equal to 0. So again, I went from 3 terms. I used star to help me make 4 terms, and I need 4 so that I can split it down the center. If you don't have 4, it's not an even number. So I have 4 terms. Now I look for what they have in common. All right, Diego, what about on the left side? What do they have in common?
They have 3x.
Okay, and what are you left with?
X plus 4.
Okay, Jarvis, what do they have in common on the right? There's always something. Don't say nothing. There's always something. Can't think of it. Okay, McKenna?
They're all negative.
Yes, that's it. Okay, they have what they have in common is that they're both negative. So what can I take out from them? Negative 1. Okay, so negative 1. And when I take the negative away, then x is positive, and so is 4 because I took the negative away. Still equal to 0. And what you notice now, or you should notice, is on either side of the yellow line, you've got the common x plus 4 as your factor. So that's going to be the lead factor, x plus 4. Kind of think about, okay, crossing it out and looking at what's left. So 3x and negative 1 is what's left. So 3x minus 1 is your second factor. And then that's set equal to 0. Remember, setting it equal to 0 is the whole point. Then you take each of those and set them equal to 0 individually by themselves. So x plus 4 is equal to 0. So is 3x minus 1. And you solve them individually to find the x-intercepts. Subtract 4 from each side of the lead factor. That tells you that the first x-intercept is negative 4. On the other side, we'll add 1 to both sides. That gives me 3x equals 1, and we'll divide by 3. And so x is 1/3. And so now I have my x-intercepts. X-intercepts is where our graph would cross the x-axis. So this is going to cross 2 times. It's going to cross once at negative 4, and it's going to cross again at 1/3. It's the same thing as finding solutions. Okay, any questions on that one? I just have one more for you. Okay, let's try one more. What I want you to do is see like one of every kind that you're going to see on your homework, and then I'm going to let you work on it. All right, this one, it might say find the roots for. Same thing, because roots are the same as x-intercepts, which are the same as solutions. It's all the same expression. Okay, this one is 4x squared minus 6x minus 9 equals x squared plus x parentheses x minus 5 plus 6. Okay, it looks terrible. I wanted you to see something like kind of the hardest one that would be on the homework, which would be something like that. Your first and primary goal is to get it to be equal to 0. That's got to be the first thing that you do, so you need to work towards that. Okay, Mia, what would you do first to start working? We're not going to be able to get it to 0 right away, but we can start doing some work towards it. What would you do?
Well, would we be able to split up on the first side?
Not until it's equal to 0.
Okay.
Okay? So can you think of something else that would help us work towards getting that?
Well, do you have to start on the first side? Or
You can throw on the other side.
So I think we distribute the x.
I think that'd be great. Okay, so let's distribute the x. That would be one of the first things we would do, working towards our goal of getting this equal to 0. And so that's going to leave me with x squared minus 5x plus 6. So on the left side, we've got an x squared and an x squared, right, one after the other. So that's like terms. So I really haven't done anything on the left side yet. I've only really worked on the right side, and I've combined like terms. Okay, Sarah, what would you do next? Okay, what do you want to move first?
X squared.
Okay, so what would you do to both sides?
We would subtract 2x.
Okay, so subtract 2x squared from both sides. That would give me 2x squared. Okay, Natalie, what else would you do? I'm sorry, I'll get out of your way so you can see a little better. Okay, so we just subtracted 2x squared towards in yellow. You want to pick one? Okay, add 5x. All right, so I'll do that in a different color. We're going to add 5x to both sides. What will that give you? If you take negative 6x and you add 5x. Negative 1x. Okay. All right, and let's pick like. Okay, and then the last thing. Okay, Scott, what might you do next? We're trying to get clear, move everything over to one side.
I will move the 2x squared to the left side.
Yep, we did that.
Okay, and okay. And
I would subtract 6 also. Okay, I'll subtract that on both sides. That's going to give me negative 15. All right, so I've got my goal. My goal was to get equal to 0. Once I'm equal to 0, then I can start thinking about doing star. And so we'll try star on this. The top of the star will be the number negative 30, while the bottom is negative 1. The numbers that work for that are a 6 and a 5, but one of them has to be negative in order to have that work out. So between the 6 and the 5, Pedro, which one should be negative? Okay. All right, so then I'm going to take my 2x squared and my negative 6x and my positive 5x and my negative 15, and I have that be equal to 0. All right, so Mia, now you're ready to split. Okay, now that you've got 4 terms all on one side equal to 0. So you have to have 4 because you can't split an odd number down the center. So we need 4, so 2 for the left, 2 for the right. Have it be equal to 0. And so now you want to split, okay, which was your original idea. So now we're finally there. Do you want to try do a split? Okay.
In the first one, you could take out like 2x.
Okay, what would that leave me with?
2x, and then it would be x minus 30.
Okay.
And then in the second one, you could take out 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would be plus 5, and then x minus 30.
Okay, and still equal to 0. So what would be the lead factor that's common to both of those?
The 3.
Yeah, the x minus 3. Okay, which would leave me with 2x and 5 still equal to 0. So once I have my 2 parentheses, my 2 factors equal to 0, I'll take them separately and set them equal to 0 by themselves. So x minus 3 would be equal to 0, and 2x plus 5 would be equal to 0, and then we would solve them separately from each other. So I'll add 3 to both sides. So x is 3. And for the final answer, I would subtract 5, giving me 2x equals negative 5. And then I would divide by 2, and x gives me negative 5 over 2. And those are called roots, which could also be called x-intercepts, which could also be called solutions. So there are 3 ways to ask the question. All 3 ways are done the same way. So it could be find the roots for, it could be find the x-intercepts for, or it could be find the solutions for. All of them are done with the idea of get it equal to 0. Once you have it equal to 0, apply star factoring. Once you're done with that, break it up and set each star factor equal to 0 so you can come up with the solutions.